Abu Bakr, this deal talks about de-escalation zones. Do we know exactly what that means?
Well, of course, this deal was initially proposed by the Russians, and then this Astana comes hot on the heels off the back of Vladimir Putin's meeting with Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the Russian and Turkish leaders meeting in Russia. And then we had Astana and this deal that speaks of safe zones or de-escalation zones. And I mean, what exactly does this mean? Well, they're speaking of things like an end to the fighting in the areas included as part of these zones. So no weapons being allowed to be used, humanitarian access into these zones as well. Some of these areas are incredibly desperate, especially the opposition areas that have been besieged for a number of months, even years in some cases. And as well as that, you're going to have checkpoints manning these areas on the outskirts that are supposed to be manned by both regime and rebel units. And so that's going to be interesting to see, and even possibly foreign troops as well. So that's in terms of the safe zones. Now, in terms of the places mentioned, you had those four areas. The Turkish Foreign Ministry is also talking about some other areas as well in Syria, so it's unclear there if those other areas will be added. But yes, safe zones, implying that fighting will end within those areas.
But some key players didn't sign this agreement, Abu Bakr. So how likely is it that the fighting is going to be reduced in the areas that are part of this deal?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? If you've got a situation where only the guarantors are signing the deal, so Russia, Iran and Turkey, but the Syrian regime and the Syrian opposition are not signing the deal, well, how are you going to implement it on the ground? And we had this situation where members of the opposition were actually shouting whilst the signing was taking place. They were talking about Iran, and they would never accept Iran as a guarantor in this deal. Of course, Iran backs the Syrian regime as well as the Lebanese militia group Hezbollah. And also talking about Russia's actions and what Russia speaks about not exactly being on the same page. And then you've got to also remember that similar deals have taken place in the past, especially with regards to ceasefires. They've broken down pretty quickly. And if we look at the intricacies of this deal in particular, so for example, the regime and the rebels manning checkpoints, how is that going to take place? How is this deal going to be enforced? What are the guarantees? What are the mechanisms? We don't know. And as well as that, for example, as part of the draft deal, it was proposed that the regime airplanes would be grounded in the areas that are included as part of the safe zones. That was taken out of the final deal. And so you've got a number of different sides and a number of different groups that need to be pleased or need to agree to this deal. And it looks like at the moment a number of them don't.